All right, you are on the platform. Well, a lot of stories around, and in fact, as we were building the studios here in Wellington late last year and way too long into this year for the platform, and I was talking to the builders, a wonderful firm, by the way, called Freedom Structures, who operate out of Plymouton, north of Wellington, and they were great to work with. But man, they said jib is like gold. Jib is like gold, and I've talked to so many in the building industry about the jib supply problems. And now we're getting stories that the jib shortage is forcing some builders literally to the wall. Oh, who wrote that? The jib shortage is forcing builders to the wall. Was that you, Ben? That was flippant, writing a headline that says the jib crisis is forcing businesses to the wall. Well, they can't make the wall to be forced to, can they? Well, basically, builders can't get supplies, which causes delay, meaning they miss milestone payments, and the resulting cash flow crunch is taking some building firms down. We are joined now by the CEO of the Building Industry Federation, Julien Leys. Julien, welcome to the platform. Thank you for joining us.
Hi there, Sean.
Look, just to clarify, for those who don't know your organisation, who do you represent?
So, Sean, we represent the supply chain for the building and construction industry in New Zealand. So that's everybody from your Fletchers and Carters all the way to merchants to smaller businesses that make construction glue. So it's anything and everything to do with the supply chain for construction materials.
All right. And the jib, can we call it a jib crisis, or am I being over dramatic?
Well, look, yes, you can. It's more a plasterboard crisis. I mean, jib's the brand name that we all know because it's such a dominant product. You know, it makes up the majority of plasterboard. But it is indeed a crisis because, as you've pointed out, there's not much of it, and it is the white gold.
All right. Do we not make this stuff here? We can't up production here?
Well, we do make it here. It's made in 2 plants. There's a third on the way in the Bay of Plenty. I mean, all of the material, you have to remember, is imported. So the gypsum comes in from Australia. Everything is imported. It gets put together here. But we only have, as I say, a manufacturer that's been around for 70 years, but they are cranking through 24/7, and even they can't keep up with the demand.
So has demand grown, or is supply? Well, you're saying okay. So their operating capacity, has demand for jib gone up?
Yes, it has, but it's a combination of that plus them trying to catch up on a massive backlog. So if you remember back to last year with that horrendous lockdown that Auckland went into, because this plant, or the main plants in Auckland, they were already then under the pump. They were put back because they couldn't manufacture for some weeks. So all of that put them behind the 8 ball, and now then they get additional demand, and it's just playing catch up. And people are now ordering the jib way in advance, and so we've all heard stories of some of the big players who have had the foresight to get a lot of jib in advance. That's also putting the smaller builders under a lot of pressure because they can't just rock on up to a merchant and buy it on the day.
Well, Jeff, reports that some of those smaller builders are going belly up or throwing in the towel. Have you heard that? Do you have any statistics or figures on that?
I've certainly heard it, and it is true because cash flow is king, obviously, in building, and some of the smaller builders, they operate on a cash basis. Now, they don't get paid if they can't complete the build. You cannot complete a build without jib. It's one of those pieces of the construction puzzle. Projects will just stop dead, literally, if you can't finish off the interior with the jib. Now, if those people, and they often are only operating on a small cash flow, I guess, in terms of having any reserve. If they don't get paid, it's not much for them to go under.
All right, Jeff. That also leaves, I guess, clients, the end customer. Julien, sorry, leaves the customer in trouble. How does a customer prepare or guard against their builder going belly up?
That's a really good question, and it's really hard to do. I mean, it used to be, people now can't rely on fixed contracts because the price of all materials, not just jib, are going up almost weekly. In fact, quotes, only last for about 5 days because the price will change in that time. The best thing they can do is to find a builder who's willing to sit down with them and actually have a plan and over some months. But very little to actually protect them in that sense, other than having someone who's got
Well, what about
got
the
a
master
robust.
build guarantee?
Um, yeah, look, you probably would have to ask the
Yeah.
master builders about that. I'm not sure of too many people that have actually got to the point where they've used that, Sean.
Well, yeah, I'm also hearing that people think they're getting a master build guarantee, and the builder doesn't hand on the paperwork, and the policies are null and void in effect, and we got to fix that up as well. Well, is the end in sight for the jib crisis? How do we get back to normal in the supply chain?
Well, look, it's going to take some time because as long as that demand is still there and we have limited supply, it's not just a matter too of bringing in new product. Because if you bring in some alternate product from overseas, which people are doing, it's going to cost you more, and you might be prepared to pay a bit more if you can get your project completed and done on time. Trouble is, you've then got to get a new consent because
Oh.
if you change the specification of a product, you've got to go through all that consent process again. It's a real pain.
What are
So
the? I mean,
there's
I'll
no.
tell you, we're building a studio in Auckland, and we're not doing anything structural. It doesn't need to be consented, but we looked at a wall, 2 walls we had to put in, and the builder said, "Well, I can't get any jib for it." So I said, what else you can do? He said, "Well, we can frame it and we'll put plywood on it, and then we can paint that or put the soundproofing on top of the plywood." So there are alternatives, aren't there?
There are, yeah, and plywood's a good one, and a lot of people are turning to plywood. It's strong, it's
Or
pretty much got stiffness.
MDF?
Yep,
Yeah.
yep, absolutely. But look, I know people that are literally, these are people building homes as well as the builders themselves. They're using contacts. They're using anybody they know to get supplies of jib, including people that have got more than they need.
Have some big firms, are they profiteering off this shortage?
Oh, look, I don't know about profiteering. I think some of them certainly have stockpiled. There's no doubt that there's been a bit of hoarding going on. They've got on early. I don't know whether they're profiteering from it though. I think they've just hedged their bets.
Well, I suppose that is a smart business. It would be nice for the building sector to get back to normal. Thank you for giving us that deep dive, Julian, into
Thanks,
the
Paul.
jib crisis. Jib, it is the new white gold, and we're not talking something grown in the highlands of Colombia here. The new white gold in New Zealand is jibboard. That was Julien Leys, CEO of the Building Industry Federation.